Good morning, New Thought Philly. Just wave. I know everybody's muted. It's okay. So I was sitting here thinking and listening to that and realizing how much I'm feeling the brilliance of all you wonderful lights, whether I can see your face or not. I am feeling all of the good that this celebration is bringing forward in our lives, and as we move forward. So today's talk, it's an inspiring talk. And I didn't just run out of ideas for titles. It'll make sense in a little bit. So I wanted to start with a story. There was a time where I was having a conversation with an acquaintance. I knew the person sort of well. We had met a couple of times. And we were talking, and the talk got around to talking about our occupations. And at the time, and still so, I was a designer and artist. And this person was a sales representative for a newspaper selling ads. And the conversation, he says, it's the most boring job in the world. I am just not a creative person, he said. And I said, everybody's creative. And he said, all creative people say that. And I thought, how true that is. How true that is. So in metaphysics, in New Thought, we claim and we know on occasion by experience that there is one power, one presence, one infinite love intelligence, one divine mind, an allness of love that is the unity of life expressing itself, and that all of that expression happens within that love. And that means that each one of us is an individualized divine idea in the mind of this source that is required at this very moment in time to experience life as us. Think about that. It's a long sentence, I get it. But, each one of us is required to be here as us. So that infinite allness of sameness can experience individuality and all its uniqueness. We were given the power of decision, the power of choice, the power of activity. And importantly, we are given the power of our words. See, words have huge power. They are a thought become manifest. They resonate, they vibrate, they have the ability to uplift or to pull down. They have the ability to create illusions and to speak truth. And we all kind of get this sense too, that when somebody speaks a truth, we go, yeah. And it's not that it's something that we don't know, but it's something that we recognize within ourselves that resonates with the words that they're speaking. And then we feel closer. We feel that our individualization might have fuzzed a little bit, and we've interacted with somebody in a way that brings us into a more harmonious way of experiencing this thing that we call life. So I actually put a timer on because Bill gets on me for running over time. So if you hear that, you'll know I'm about to stop. I'll try not to make it abrupt. So I've been thinking about this power of words and the power to uplift or the power to pull down, to be positive or negative, and how that. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, okay, so we all have this sphere of perception, right? And then we have this little itty bitty part that's our actual physical realm of control within that big sphere of perception. And then we have a little piece of it more, which is a little bit bigger than our little itty bitty part that's physical control, which is our mental control. and our ability to select the thoughts that we would like to focus on. Now, I'm not going to say that you can control your thoughts, and I can prove it. Pink elephants, right? Anyway, don't see red. Uh, uh, Automatically, the mind can pull those images up and say, okay, I've never seen a pink elephant, but I got an image of one, you know? And when somebody says, don't see red, the first thing we do is look for red. So trying to control our thoughts is an exercise in futility. However, we can choose the thoughts that we want to focus on, that we can remind ourselves, and I've always wondered who's doing the reminding, but that's another talk, remind ourselves to refocus on the things that we would like to experience in our lives. Now, I'm going to do something I rarely do, maybe, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say some things, okay? And I want you to not open your heart to these things, okay? Don't accept them for yourself, but I would like you to tap in and recognize the feeling that goes with them, okay? Everybody ready? You're stupid. You're worthless. You're a liar. You're a cheat. You're a thief. You're ugly. And we've got a million more. Okay. Take a deep breath. Clear all that out. Recognize that just in the power of those words, whether or not you accept them into your life, we hear them and it drags us down. It lowers our vibrational experience to say, am I really that? Even if we don't accept them in our lives. Because they're floating out there in that world of infinite thoughts, and we can latch onto them pretty easily. And usually that happens when we're in some situation in which we find those words being said to us when we're emotionally vulnerable, when we aren't in our positive state of mind, grounded in the truth of that individualized expression of a divine being that is the reality that can be covered over, and we associate with it, and all of a sudden, maybe we believe it. And it feels terrible. Okay, barriers up again. They're stupid. They're worthless. They're liars. They're cheats. They're thieves. They're ugly. We got a million more of those too. And when we find ourselves in conversational places, okay, take a deep breath. Release all that negativity. Know that it was just an experiment. It does not apply. But we may have all found ourselves in that situation in which it did apply, where for a moment of weakness, we found ourselves joining the gossip. And it doesn't have to be that brutal. All it has to be is our judgment expressing itself to someone else. Don Miguel Ruiz calls that black magic, and I agree. We are casting our spell, whether or not directly to the person or by a roundabout method. We are casting our black magic spell in some way to bring them down from wherever they are. Usually to try to make ourselves feel better by comparison. But how much better can we be if we're sitting around the water cooler or wherever the conversation is happening, joining in the fun, you know? So we have a choice, always. And sometimes it requires courage to stand in that choice. But I'm going to change gears now. I invite you to accept these. You're beautiful. You are brilliant. You're kind. You're compassionate. You're the light of my life. I love being around you. I just love it when you do that. It's fantastic. How did you come up with that? And we've got a million more of those too. So, what happens when we get into that negative frame of mind? What happens when we find ourselves just buying into the negativity? Michelle had talked about it earlier. You know, it's easy to do when we're feeling that physical area of control as the only area of control, but it's not. We can change our thinking. I'm going to give a little bit of practical advice. I'm not going to, usually don't go for advice, so take it as a suggestion. I call it Disney's one and only good thought, which is the thumper rule. The thumper rule is if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. In another realm, in the recovery world, they call that restraint of pen and tongue. And the thing, while it may not stop the thought, what it does do is stop you from casting black magic out there on the world at large and bringing that negative vibration into the being of physicality by just keeping your mouth shut. And then you can work on getting rid of the thought. But that in itself, if we were all to do that, think of the civility that we could have conversations with. Think of the possibility of that unfolding just by following the thumper rule. You know? The other way to turn our thinking, now that we've kept our mouth shut, we're still thinking that so-and-so is a rah, rah, rah. Take your pick, fill in the blank, right? But it's still rattling around up there. I mean, we all get this. It's the human condition. It's a package deal. You're going to get all sides of it, but you get to choose which one you want to reinforce, right? So we're up there in our mind. And the thing to do at that point is to remember who we are. First, ourselves. And I separate that. That's remember. Okay? Because what has happened in any of those situations where we are thinking negatively about something other than ourselves, and often ourselves, we have disassociated with who we really are in some way, shape, or form. So we have to remember and become one again so that we know that we are an individualized expression of a divine idea that is required right here to be an expression of good, an expression of love, an expression of divine creativity that the world requires right now as us individually. You can choose the other side if you so desire. I don't advise it, but that's up to you. And then expand that out to remember everybody that you're having these thoughts about. There is only one. And while there is an illusion that there is some otherness for each one of us with the rest of the world and all of its people and things, the reality isn't the reality. We are greater than the individual pieces of God that we have been brought here in this moment to express. Greater than we can possibly imagine yet. And the more we expand our consciousness, the more we recognize the truth of the power that we are given with our thoughts and our words and our actions to create that good, which I'm assuming this because you guys are brilliant lights, that we wish to see in the world. So it becomes incumbent upon us to have the courage, which I pray for often, the courage to stand in the truth of who we are, despite the illusion of other people's negativity. Every politician out there is an individualized expression of God. My personal prayer is that they remember that in every moment of their activity. That they remember that we are one. For whatever has brought them to whatever path that they have taken, they are us. And we have a choice, both individually and collectively, to be love, to be harmony, to be peace, to be good, if you want to put dualistic parameters on it. And when we have the courage to step forward and maintain that in our minds all the time, to maintain our verbalization of those thoughts, we bring more good. It resonates. It's so much more powerful than negativity. I don't have time to get into that. But just think about it, you know? The power of good is so strong that it only requires a little bit of it to keep us from annihilation. That's some heavy stuff, right? And the more of it we have, the more opportunity there is for everybody to enjoy that harmony, that peace, that love, that creative expression, that support by all those around them that is their divine right, just as it is ours. Everyone is due the support of the divine providence in their life. Not because you did something, but because you are something. You are that divine radiant light individualized as an expression of God, however you view spirit. Some people have a God aversion. It's a word aversion, it means the same thing. You know, that infinite allness of life that is the source of all being, okay, or God for short. You know, please don't put any negative connotations on it. So I invite you to a practice, a daily practice. Set the intention in the day's beginning to be that good, to find the inner power, to have the courage, not to buy in, but to stand in truth. Meditate on it. Remind yourself, because we all slide a little bit on this scale, usually when events happen that throw us off our beam a little bit. But we can stop and remind ourselves, hey, my intention for this day is to be good, to be loving, to be harmonious, to speak truth, to speak love, to radiate that love. And I invite you to keep at it. It takes some practice. The more we do it, the easier it gets. And often, when it gets easier, the challenges that we face are greater because it has become easier. You'll figure that one out. Namaste.